Hello, it is your old pal in Tokyo, Chris Jurgensen. Now we're continuing up with our lesson on Fall, this beautiful song by Wayne Shorter, because it's a good gateway into modal type of jazz. It's important to understand the difference, though. A lot of times people just get very confused about what the difference is, and it's a different kind of music. It really is. The way you approach the solo is very different, too. So before we get into how to practice soloing over Fall, what I want to do first is sort of talk about like the older kinds of jazz, more like, the standard type of jazz. Now that's really based on the same system. It goes back 200 years, 300 years. It's sort of the diatonic system where you get little pockets of diatonic harmony. So I took this old jazz standard and I sort of just arranged it to make it a little bit more simple to look at. But so look at this song here. It's in C major, I'll tell you right off the bat. And that A7 is a secondary dominant that heads to the 2 chord in C major, which is D minor 7. So it's a 1 chord, a 5 of the 2 chord, the 2 chord, the 5 chord. And instead of that 5 chord going to 1 like you'd sort of expect, it goes to a 3 chord, which is E minor. Then it goes to A minor, which is the 6 chord, right? Now, we're going to do a little key change. We're going to go to the neighboring key of F. Which is really the 4 chord in C anyway. So you can see there's sort of a relationship already going on. So we got a 2-5-1 in F, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. Now we're going to go a little bit further away. We're going to go to D flat major, which is not a neighboring key to either of these, either C major or F major. But we just got a 2-5 in D flat major. And then we got a 2-5-1 in A major. Then we got a 2-5-1 in D flat major again. And a half step above that D flat major 1 chord is the 2 chord of C major. And that brings us back to the 1 chord using a 2-5-1. So this is sort of the way that a lot of music from that period in time was written, okay? And so when you solo it over, what you're looking for is those little key changes. And you act appropriately, you pick the appropriate scales that matches those key changes, right? So you're either going to use scales using chromaticism, or you're going to use scale tones too, right? You can do it either way. So let me just play a couple choruses. Now, I have to do a little disclaimer. I'm not the greatest jazz musician in the world, but, I'll do my best so you can sort of hear how we approach this kind of jazz rather than the modal jazz that we're going to do after this, okay? right, so this is sort of the vocabulary for this kind of music. Now, getting on to fall. So what we're going to do with fall is we need to, what I suggest you do anyways, is that we're going to look at each of these chords and we're going to decide what mode it is, and we're going to decide what tools we have from that mode that we can use as improvisational tools. Okay, so let's look at that first chord. It's F sharp 7 sus 4. Now, any kind of sus 4 is saying that is going to tell you it's Mixolydian, right? So in this case, F sharp Mixolydian. You can think of the scale different ways, but if you want to make it easier on yourself and you understand the diatonic palette, this is a B major scale, right? So let's just take it from there. And what I suggest you do when you practice these kinds of songs is that you just loop like these chords one at a time and get used to like your options, okay? So let's do that. Okay, so that sounds fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to teach you an interesting trick that you can really use. So if you know that we're in B major, just keep in mind that there's 3 minor pentatonic scales that you can use for any major scale or any major scale mode, right? So I don't want this to confuse you too much, but if it's easier for you to remember, just remember the rule. And the rule is that for a Mixolydian scale, you can play a minor pentatonic scale on the 5th of the chord, the 6th of the chord, and the 2nd of the chord, okay? So let's just go in that order, okay? So you have an F sharp 7 sus 4. The 5th of that chord is going to be C sharp, right? So you can use a C sharp minor pentatonic scale. You can use a D sharp minor pentatonic scale because that's the 6th. You can use a G sharp minor pentatonic scale because that's the 2nd. Okay, so let's just play around with those and see what we get, okay? Okay, so, you want to practice to a loop so you can sort of get a sense for the sounds of these pentatonic scales over that chord. Okay, so remember, pentatonic scale on the 5th, the 6th, and the 2nd are good minor pentatonic scale choices. Now, you also have triads you can use. You can use a triad on the 4th, on the flat 7, and on the root. Major triads, right? So let's just see what that sounds like. Okay, so these are like some nice sounds, right? So let's try to combine these things and see if we can come up with some ideas. All right, so those are some good choices that you have. Now, let's move on to the next chord. Look, so the next chord is B7 with a flat 9. But look there, it's got a G sharp melody note, right? So that's the 13. So what the composer, Wayne Shorter, is saying is that it's a B7 flat 9 with a 13, this sound. Anytime you see a 13 with a sharp 9 or a flat 9, it's the half whole step diminished scale, okay? So that's, you have other choices. Keep in mind, you have arpeggio choices and things that come right out of that scale. But for the time being, let's just stick to that scale and develop, you know, an ear for the sound, okay? So here. All right, so now we've knocked out 2 of these chords. Next is E9 sus4. It's the same thing, right? As we did with the first chord. These are both Mixolydian chords. So E9 sus4 is going to be the 5 chord in A major. So we have to think in A major, right? So once again, if you remember the rules, pentatonic scale on the 5th, the 6th, and the 2nd, it means we got B minor, C sharp minor, and F sharp minor pentatonic scales that you can use. Okay, right? Of course, you got the triads too, right? You can use A, D, or E, major triad. These are also good things. Okay, next up, so we have an E flat major 7 sharp 11. Anytime it says major 7 and sharp 11, even if it doesn't say sharp 11, a lot of these modal tunes, Lydian is a perfectly good choice, but especially if it says sharp 11, it's telling you Lydian, right? So E flat Lydian is B flat major. So all you need is a B flat major scale. Now, if you want to know the rule for playing minor pentatonic scales for a Lydian sound, you can play on the 6th, the 7th, and the 3rd. Okay, that's the minor pentatonic scales you can use. So in this case, for E flat major 7 sharp 11, you can use C minor pentatonic scale, D minor pentatonic scale, and G minor pentatonic scale. Same thing. You can use 3 triads, major triads, B flat, E flat, and F. These are all great choices. For, you know, especially because with this E flat major 7 sound, you can play an E flat triad. this is a nice sound, right? And the minor pentatonic scales all sound great. So let's listen to these and pay attention to my little subtitles down there. All right, so that's like a great sound, right? So now we worked out the first four chords, what to play over them. Remember, F sharp Mixolydian, B half whole step diminished, E Mixolydian, and E flat Lydian. Okay, and that repeats. Next, in measure 9, we get a D major 7 chord, right? So again, it's perfectly fine to think Lydian here, right? So that's going to be like an A major scale, right? If you want to know the rule for picking the proper major scale for Lydian, it's the major scale up a fifth. What's up a fifth from D? A. So we're going to play an A major scale. That's the same as D Lydian. Same thing, minor pentatonic scales. For D, you can play the minor pentatonic scale on the 6th, the 7th, and the 3rd, just like we did with the other E flat, major 7 sharp 11, 6th, 7th, and 3rd. That would be B minor, C sharp minor, and F sharp minor pentatonic scale. Okay, same thing, D and E major arpeggio. And also you have the choice of playing an A triad arpeggio. Okay, so let's check that out. Great sound. Next, so the next chord is D7 flat 9, again with the 13 on the top. So we want a D half whole step diminished scale, right? So let's check that out. All right, so moving on to the next chord, we have a G minor 11, and that's anytime, generally with these modal tunes, you know, even if it doesn't say G minor 6 or G minor 13, when you see minor, Dorian's a pretty safe bet. So in this case, G Dorian would be F major, right? So if you think down a whole step for the major scale you need. So, you can play an F major scale. Pay attention to those chord tones now. But F major scale is the parent key that we're looking for. So as far as minor pentatonic scales, we can play the minor pentatonic scale on the root, on the second, and on the fifth. So G minor, A minor, and D minor pentatonic scales are good choices for this chord. Why? Those are the same minor chords in the diatonic system. So that's how you know. Triads F, B flat, and C are going to work. Okay, so let's check that out. All right, well that was good, right? Next chord we're going to get is B minor. So again, B Dorian, right? So B Dorian would be A major. And again, pentatonic scale on the root, the second, and the fifth. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, next A flat major 7. So A flat major 7 sharp 11, which ran Lydian, right? So same thing here. A flat Lydian is going to be E flat major scale. Again, pentatonic scale on the 6th, the 7th, and the 3rd, right? So let's listen to that. Right. So next, we got the F sharp 7 again, the B 7 flat 9 again. Then, so we already did those. We did those in the first two measures. We did it in the 5th and the 6th measure, and now we're same thing again. Then there's only two chords left. We have E minor 7. I'm sorry, E minor 11. Remember the Dorian. You can think Dorian. Again, E Dorian is going to be D major, right? So it's a D major scale. Paying attention to chord tones. And then, same thing, minor pentatonic scale on the root, the 2nd, and the 5th. Okay, and of course you got the 3 major triads as well. Triads would be D, G, and A. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so, and then we got the last chord. The last chord is C major 7 sharp 11, right? C sharp major 7 sharp 11 is going to be C major 7 sharp 11 is going to be C Lydian, and C Lydian is G major. Remember, think up a fifth. What's an up a fifth from C? G. So you need a G major scale, which is the exact same scale as C Lydian. Okay, so again, remember, you can play the minor pentatonic scale on the 6th, which is A minor pentatonic scale. You can play it on the 7th, which is B minor pentatonic scale. And you can play it on the 3rd, which is E minor pentatonic scale, right? So, and then you can play a C major triad, a D major triad, and a G major triad. So let's check that out. Okay, good. So, look, my suggestion here is that you did exactly what I just did. You try these chords one at a time, practice over them until you become familiar with the sounds, right? And you remember the rules. You know, which major scale you need, which minor pentatonic scales you can play. You could think major pentatonic scales if that's easier for you, of course. Or what triads, major triads you can use. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't use all the triads. You certainly can. But these are just, you know, little tricks that have worked for me. So you remember the scale, the mother scale that you need, you know, the mode that you need, the 3 minor pentatonic scales or 3 major pentatonic scales, and then the 3 triads, right? These are just things that you should practice and get into your playing. And then you put them together one by one. So I'm going to put this together real quick and play it for you, okay?